The actions of immigration enforcement continue to lead to unrest across the country. The images continue to pour in as protests have been taking place in the nation's biggest cities. Now tonight, we're learning that a local man is in ICE detention, with some saying he shouldn't be there. Thank you so much for joining us at 5 o'clock. I'm Jasmine Brooks. Joel D. Smith anchoring our coverage tonight in York with what we know about the arrest of a local man and the aftermath of the recent demonstrations.
Hey there, Jasmine. Good evening, everybody. This could just be a neighbor of yours, someone that you've known for a long time. Maybe you knew they were from a foreign country, but you never thought this was possible. That's kind of the shock that we're seeing now in York, in this neighborhood, about the man James Eric. So some of his co-workers, he works in Lancaster County, just found out that he was detained by ICE. They're not sure why. They think it's wrong. They put it out on social media. People started talking about it. It got brought to our attention. So we came here to the neighborhood where he lives, and then that's where I ran across Anthony Kenny here, who has lived next door to James Eric for 20 years. When you heard that he had been detained by ICE, this is a man that's from Sierra Leone, has lived here for a while. When you first heard that he was actually arrested for what did you hear? What did you think?
It was unbelievable. I couldn't see it because this man is a good man. He been a good neighbor to us, family, you know, and he always helped people. He was the kind of man that you would want next door to you, you know. He would watch out for you. He would take you. He took me when my wife was sick. He took me to the hospital. I had no transportation, and he waited for me and brought me back. Fixed the car. Yeah. Many of things.
You name it, he was the kind of neighbor you want to live next door to. I hear you.
Yes,
now, had you heard about, in the past, the only thing we've been able to look up is that he had a speeding ticket this year, and then many years ago, 2003, was charged with receiving stolen property.
Right. Well, I heard about that. You know, we all make mistakes. We young, we coming. He just coming here, just learning the ways of American, having fun and thinking that was okay. But he changed. He changed. He said, "I'm not going to do this no more. This is not for me," and start going to church. He's been to church for 20 years. I can every Sunday morning. That brother was going to church and taking his children and staying on the right path. He's a good brother.
But instead of sleeping in the home next to you tonight, he's in prison, and he's in Center County. We know that right now. What would be your message to him, if you could get one to him at this point?
James,
yeah,
I'm praying for you, and I hope that this country will come to the understanding that everybody is not bad that's outside of here. I love you. Keep your chin up, keep praying.
Well said, Anthony. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you. It's about trying to understand the entire situation. Once again, we haven't got the official reason as to why he was detained, but what we found just in our research is that there was a receipt of stolen property charge back in 2002. Apparently, he shared some of that information with his neighbor over the years, but since then, couldn't find anything except for a speeding ticket this year. So that's the very latest on that situation. But once again, there's a lot of things happening across the country. There hasn't been a real outpouring here yet. People are just starting to learn about this, but makes you wonder what might happen over the weekend or beyond. So let's take it now to Los Angeles, where we saw many different examples of violence recently there, and the arrests just continue as well in the protests. So in Los Angeles, it's the 7th day of the protests. A federal judge heard arguments today in a case where California officials accused the president of overstepping by federalizing the National Guard. They claim the White House is making things worse. Meanwhile, the president is saying those protesters may not fully believe even in what they're doing.
People are agitators, they're paid, they're professionals, they're insurrectionists, they're troublemakers, they're all of those things, but I believe they're paid, and we're going to find out through Pam Bondi and her great staff.
So right now, the National Guard is on standby for additional protests if they were to happen in cities like Atlanta, Chicago, and Dallas. Moving along to other situations, you got protests expected to take place this weekend across central PA. It's being called the No Kings protest. People expected to gather in Harrisburg, York, Lancaster, some other cities as well. They say it's to protest the president's military parade and immigration enforcement, how it has gone so far. Now, ahead of those demonstrations, the governor, Josh Shapiro, coming out saying that state police are working with local authorities to make sure everybody is as safe as possible if they decide to go become a part of those protests. He says in a statement, quote, "I want to be very clear. All protests and demonstrations must remain peaceful, lawful, and orderly. Violence is not an answer to any political differences. Destruction and chaos are unacceptable, and neither will be permitted in Pennsylvania." So we'll have more coverage of those protests and also continue to bring more information about this recent arrest really hitting home in this small neighborhood in York. And we'll get back to you on that at 5:30, including some of the ways that the Lancaster County Democrats say they're going to respond to this as well. I'm Joel D. Smith here in York. Jasmine, back to you.
Okay, Joel D., thanks so much. Tonight we're learning that a local man is in ICE detention, with some saying he just should not be there. Joel D. Smith anchoring our coverage tonight live in York. With what we know about the aftermath of the recent demonstrations we've been seeing, Joel D., what about this specific man?
Okay, so no demonstrations on this one as of yet, but certainly some disappointment from the people that have known him for more than 20 years. So some of the things that we see, these big demonstrations, that is not in this scenario. And sometimes we see people talking about how dangerous some of these people that have been rounded up by ICE really are, accused of being gang members, things like that. As far as we can tell, James Eric, a 45-year-old who's lived in York for a while now, did have something that happened back in 2002 or 2003, and that was a charge of accepting stolen property. Since then, nothing but a traffic stop earlier this year, but now he is in custody with ICE.
I apologize, my mic was not open. Listen, so let's talk about how he was on the radar of police. Do you believe it was from this earlier traffic stop?
Well, we don't really know, but in the history of what we have looked up with some people being arrested, we don't always get the final reason. Remember, there was that famous one in York where the person was pleading and saying that they needed to contact their wife. She's pregnant. We later learned that there was some pretty serious charges with that person. We do not know if that's a scenario here.
Yeah.
The person I talked to, the neighbor, said he really doubts it. He did know about this prior thing back in 2002 when this person just recently had come into the country from Sierra Leone, a dangerous country as it were. He did talk to him about that, and I asked him about that part and what he really knows about this guy now. Take a listen.
Well, he ain't perfect. That's one thing, he ain't perfect. And then he had to learn the ways here in the United States. And you meet the wrong people. Once you find out, you stop. And he did. For years, 20. I've been here 20 years.
Yeah.
And this man don't do nothing but help people.
His family's taken care of. We heard we had some daughters, right?
Yes, all three of them. They were crying, and he go feed the poor too.
Yeah.
He takes his daughter. They go feed the poor.
Sounds like the kind of guy you want to live next to.
Yeah, great guy. He's great. He's my brother. I love him, man.
So, Jasmine, one last thing. He was working in Lancaster County for a moving company, and his coworkers got together on this and said, you know, he's just been getting these overall updates every year, work visas, so to speak. So he kept getting those renewed over and over again. Once again, not a U.S. citizen, but here legally. I wanted to point that out in this situation, and that's part of the reason people are so frustrated, because he seemed to be doing all the right things over the last 20 years.
All right, Joel D., we're going to catch up with you again at 6. Thank you so much. Neighbors are reacting tonight after a York County man was detained by ICE, and officials claim he's been here illegally for decades. Thank you for joining us at 6. I'm Jasmine Brooks. Joel D. Smith anchoring our coverage tonight from York County, bringing us the very latest on this detainment and reaction as well. Joel D.
Hey, Jasmine, good evening, everybody. 45-year-old James Eric has lived in this neighborhood for more than 2 decades. Neighbors say he is the best, easy to be around, help you at any moment, has 3 daughters that he's raising, and he is a good neighbor and a good person to be around. Can't say a citizen, though, because he is not. But he has worked on a work visa for years and years, according to his coworkers. They were very disappointed to hear that he had been detained by ICE recently, and so they went to social media. That brought it to our attention. We looked up what could possibly be in his past. Now, it's not always what we know exactly, but what's on public records is that he had a speeding ticket earlier this year, and then in 2002, he apparently received some stolen property. That is something he apparently shared with a neighbor that we talked to, and he said this neighbor, yes, he learned about this stuff, but that was when he was very young, and since then, he's been amazing. Here's more from that neighbor we talked to just a little bit ago.
James,
Yeah.
I'm praying for you, and I hope that this country will come to the understanding that everybody is not bad that's outside of here. I love you. Keep your chin up, keep praying.
And that is his message to 45-year-old James Eric tonight. Once again, we don't know exactly why he was detained. We're still looking into that. What we did find was receiving stolen property more than 20 years ago. What is next for this situation? Well, we did talk to someone from Lancaster Township, the Democratic Committee, who says they're very disappointed by this. They're going to speak out about this, and they're going to keep the pressure on the government to make changes. They don't think this is fair for a number of reasons. Here's some more from them.
The entire process seems extremely rushed, and it does not seem like these people are given the opportunity to stand up for themselves or prove their innocence.
That woman says she will be part of protests over the weekend in Lancaster City. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But let's get more into this situation as a whole. The detainment in York is not the first time we've reported on immigration enforcement in central PA. A Honduran national was arrested in York County in February. He could be seen on video calling out for his pregnant wife. Originally arrested on charges of rape, he was only sentenced for failure to depart the United States. In March, 6 Bhutanese Nepali people living in Pennsylvania deported to Bhutan. 3 were from Dauphin County, 1 from Lancaster County. Dauphin County officials say at least 4 of those departed were arrested by Nepalese authorities after being deported. So those are some of the situations bringing us to these protests that are scheduled for over the weekend across central PA, including Saturday. They're called No Kings protests. People expected to gather in places like Lancaster, York, Harrisburg, some other cities as well. They say it's to protest the president's military parade that's also happening that day in D.C. and also recent immigration enforcement. And that brings us to the governor, Josh Shapiro, making some comments about these upcoming demonstrations and what police are doing right now, saying that these will be safe, writing in part, I want to be very clear, all protests and demonstrations must remain peaceful, lawful, and orderly. Violence is not an answer to any political differences. Destruction and chaos are unacceptable, and neither will be permitted here in Pennsylvania. So we're starting to learn more about all these things, Jasmine, and as we do get more details, if there is something else in this background for this man who was just arrested here recently, James Eric, we will let you know. But for now, neighbors very surprised and disappointed by what's happening to their friend. Back to you.
All right, Jill D., thank you very much.